Hello everyone, this is DD1 here, and today we're going to be taking a look at why the Gemmy Pennywise animatronic was ruined in production. Now, I don't think this item was ruined per se, but it's just really tragic what ended up happening to this piece. And I feel like a lot of it could have been avoided, and a lot of it was simply trying to be as cheap as possible. So as you can tell, there are two different Pennywise heads here. One of them is obviously a prototype, and one of them is production. And if you aren't so sure, this is the prototype one. Now, these two heads are built completely differently with the materials and everything. Of course, this one is resin since it is a prototype. However, it was not going to be this material in production. As you can see, there are a bunch of screw holes here with screws inside. Well, maybe not that one. It looks like it's broken off. Supposed to be screws inside. And so this would have been injection molded plastic in production. And what is injection molded plastic? It is this. It is this. It is anything that, here's an example. Here's a PS3. This has injection molded plastic on it. That means there's screws going in there, kind of just snaps together all of that stuff. Maybe a little shiny in some instances. Then you have vacuform, which is the thin, flimsy, clear stuff that the body shells of these guys is made out of. And then you have rotomold, which is like what the old Gemmy black body shells are made of. And then you have blow mold. Blow mold is something that, in my opinion, has plagued this industry. In the old days, something that would have been, say, vinyl, like the old Butler heads, is now blow mold today. And while it still gets the job done, there's this big, ugly seam in the middle between the two halves. And of course, there's a seam on both of these, but that's because this is injection. So of course, there's two halves that are going together like an old scary skull. This has a seam on it, but there's no screws there. And this is blow mold. And you might be thinking, well, isn't the blow mold better because there's not all these ugly holes everywhere? That is a pro. However, blow mold does not hold detail as well. And the detail on this head was just obliterated. There's other things to talk about, like the actual separate eyes in there, the paint, the physical detail of the sculpt, the angle of the head. But ultimately, the blow mold has just killed a lot of the detail here. So let's take a look here. First of all, this head is angled down more, which gives him more of that Pennywise look. It really emphasizes the big forehead. This head is looking straight forward. So that's a pretty big difference. The neck is also shaped a little differently, maybe a little more naturally in this case. You can see the seam lines are in different spots, not that that's too relevant. But we'll take a look here at this head. So you can see how angled down he is versus this one, which is looking upright. So that difference alone is huge. And why they change it? Well, with this doesn't even have screws. It has rivets in the bottom. You can see that it is a flat piece, likely reused from something else. And since this is level, they could just rivet that in there. With this, this is reused as well, but there's grooves it slides into, and that's ultimately just a little more work. And plus, this one has a little bit of plastic cut out in these sections, and unlike with right here, which saves, I guess, a few more cents. This is kind of an awkward head to hold with one hand, but here's the front. Now, this was originally 3D printed, and then they made a casting off the 3D print. In the old days, there would be a clay sculpture that this would happen to. But this is resin, it's not 3D printed. However, you can tell the thing that was casted originally was 3D printed with all those lines, although it kind of fits with Pennywise's forehead style. But you can see all of the detail in the head there. And then just look at this. All of that is just gone. They tried to fill it in with some gray paint to make up for it, but it is just lost. I mean, this is excellent right here. And then right here, it's just so tragic. And then you can see he has the physical eyes. The earlier ones didn't have the LED going through it, but it actually still works here in my opinion. It's just so cool that the eyes are separate. You can tell they are. And here they are just painted on completely. Along with the neck and other stuff, when they revised the sculpt, they just filled in the eye holes and painted them on. So it's not nearly as good looking. The paint on the mouth and nose is interesting. It's multi-textured, either like his originally perfect red, like face paint is now dirty, or you could think of it as blood. And here, it's just a solid color. Now, in the previous generations, the teeth were painted gray, but this is the newer one from last year, so the teeth are painted different, but you can't really compare that, I guess. Just in everything, basically, there's more detail. With this one, the hair, the earlier ones from this were painted like almost a brownish orange, which is not accurate to the movie, and this is painted super duper bright, unless it's in low lighting, but this one is the perfect color of orange. So this is the third youngest of all the samples known to be in existence still, and the paint is perfect on the hair. The biggest thing when it comes to producing it really is just all the detail that was lost. I mean, look at this, guys. You probably have no idea that it's that crazy of a difference. Okay, I'm gonna sit this down now. It's very, very heavy. Okay, good, it's balancing like that. So just from a quick glance here, I mean, look at the difference. Look how goofy the neck is. Everything with the neck being changed was, I think, to save money, because they made it go out to fit along this, and then they made a level for it to attach with rivets instead of grooves and stuff. Because I don't know if you could really do the grooves like an injection with the blow mold here. But I mean, just look at that contrast, guys. Also, the sculpt originally just, I mean, look how much more this looks like Pennywise. This looks like a regular clown trying to be Pennywise. Even like the shape of the head here is just so much better. The forehead looks larger. I always thought this looked a little off. And like there is a big forehead, of course, but I mean, look, this is more narrow, like Pennywise's head. There's more detail. It's just everything about this is like super close to the original character, relatively speaking. And this is just so off. I mean, just take that in, guys. Absolutely insane. All they had to do was, and even if they did blow mold it, don't use the rivets. Like, how much more would it have cost to just do this? Even if you made it the blow mold, what if you just did it this way? Because the angled head is so much better. And sure, you want to save money by getting rid of the other eyes, which is another piece you have to produce. So maybe you want to go this route, but why change the shape of the head? I mean, seriously. And this was done with 3D modeling on a computer, so if you're going to change the neck here, you can probably still make this angle down more. Like there's ways to adapt. Like if the factory told them, hey, in order to meet this certain budget we have, we need to change this, and this. We need to use this piece instead of this piece. Okay, well, let's just revise the 3D model. I've gotten 3D models made in China. It's not the worst, especially to a huge company. And look at this goofiness. Like, oh, I'm just realizing that. Look, here he has a completely sculpted out ear, and here it is kind of just smushed. Because it's easier to produce something with less overhang. See how there's ear there, and then here it's not. There's so many differences. I did not notice that one until now. I noticed that there was more paint here, but that's crazy. And Honestly, would I have paid even an extra $20 for a Pennywise if it had this head? Absolutely. Even with this paint, even with the eyes sculpted, just this head, it's so much better. And the Pennywise last year had a new item number. It had different colored stuff on the clothes, different paint. If it's a whole different item number, why not change the head that much more? And also the paint on this is super duper fragile. I mean, that was just coming off on its own, and then some on the nose. I feel like it's going to spread, which I would be more nervous about if it was important, but it's not. Just, I mean, guys. This also happened with the Lowe's zombie. His head was made this way, and if you look at a resin one, or if you just get the stock photo and zoom in a lot, you'll see a lot more detail. And we've seen with the old Scary Skulls, it is possible to keep detail in injection. And hey, a vinyl head would be one piece, not two. It wouldn't have this seam, and maybe it would cost less than injection. Why not make it vinyl? But wait, we have blow mold, and blow mold is plaguing this industry like crazy. Every single SVI item. Hands originally didn't have a seam on it when they're 3D printed, but in production they have that seam. It's lightweight, it's popular because it's not like vacuform where you just push on and it cracks. It has strength to it, but it's just super cheap. And instead of vinyl, like a pop figure or something, the industry just overall has switched to this. If you get a John Doe by Techie, it'll still have the vinyl feet. So why can't you use it in other places? But blow mold or vinyl aside, because that's a whole different debate here, I just don't get these changes. Well, some of them you can see why, but others I don't. How much harder was it to just leave the ear separation here? You know, the freaking new Santa heads have these exact eyeballs, just different decals in them. Why can't you use them on here? I mean, I could go on and on and on and on here, and I don't want to. But this is just a wake-up call for people. And historically, prototypes oftentimes have more detail in them and look better, painted better, because they're done by hand. It's a whole different department. The sampling department is different from the mass production department. So worse paint, I can get that. You know, resin is going to hold more detail than even vinyl will, which vinyl tends to hold a lot. Like, you know, the old like Jimmy Butler hands and stuff with all that detail. That is vinyl. John Doe's feet are live casted too. They have a lot of detail. So some detail will naturally be lost from prototype to production, but rarely is it this extreme. Rarely. I mean, Graves, some people will like the produced head forever, but you could say that was tragic. Dawn of the Dead's produced head is, I think, universally agreed upon tragic. And there's backstory to that, but I don't feel like getting into that today. But guys, the shape of the head, if you changed everything, you made the neck goofy, you did that bottom plate, you made it blow mold, why make his head more round? Why? And it's clearly just a revised computer rendering of the sculpt. They just went through the process again. So why do this? And like, maybe by chance, just in production when they were making the produced mold, something warped or something and it became like that. I don't know. But the bottom line is, whether these changes were all intentional or not, it's tragic what happened to this piece. I think if the head was at least remotely still like this one on the left here, that a lot more people would have liked it. You know, a lot of people bought the produced one. It's still cool how it has the head turn classic mech and the classic arm movement. That's cool stuff, guys. And the audio is different on them, but that's just a preference. The produced one is still cool, but there's other Pennywise heads on the market that look better. And it could have been this. By the way, Beetlejuice's head was vinyl, right? Beetlejuice had a vinyl head, so why couldn't this have been vinyl? Why couldn't it have? And why did Freddy's head shape not change as much from the stock photos to what we got on the shelves? There's just so much mystery here, but all in all, this was just a huge butchering on Jimmy's part. And I'm very thankful to be able to help preserve this piece of history here, because the world deserved to see the other two on YouTube, and they deserve to see this one because this is just so well done. Anyways, guys, that's enough talking for one video. Jeez Louise. Hope you got something out of this. Maybe not. Just a talking video. But if you want to see more videos on comparisons of prototype and produced, or just comment down below what all you want to see more of. If you wanted to see a full setup comparison between these two guys, that would suck. I would be miserable moving them around because the poles fall out, mainly because of that metal base. There's no grippiness like the poles have with each other. I could, but I don't want to. But I could do other stuff. So just comment down below what you want to see, and I'll try and do that. I'll try and get that out there. I know I did the poll, and I wanted to follow up with the poll. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.